Okay, grade 8. This is your homework on finding the area of three different shapes using distributive property. Now, I don't have the actual questions because before I made the video, I accidentally deleted them. But we're going to start with just a simple expression like this. Now, if I told you the area was 35 units squared, whatever, and we're not even going to put meters or whatever, just 35. Then what this means is the first thing you have to do is write down the formula area equals length times width. And since the area is 35, and the length doesn't matter, it could be either one of these ones, we're going to treat the length as being the single term here, 5, multiplied by the width, which is x plus 2. When I substitute everything I know, I end up with this algebraic, that's algebraic equation that utilizes distributive property to solve. So the first thing I do is find out what this x value is by solving using distributive property. So when I expand 5 times x plus 2, I'm going to have 5 x's, and I'm going to have a plus 10 equals 35. Once you get it down to this, all you have to do is isolate for x by getting rid of your constant, getting rid of your coefficient, and leaving with x equals 5. Okay. Now your numbers are going to be different in your rectangle, I think, unless I coincidentally chose the right numbers that were on it. But once you know your x value, take it over here and substitute it. So x is 5, so it goes here as 5. And that would make this length, if it was 5 plus 2, this length is 7. And the perimeter will be 2 lengths and 2 widths, or 2 sevens, because this is 7 as well, and 2 fives, because this is 5 as well. 2 sevens will be 14, and 2 fives will be 10, which means the perimeter of this particular rectangle is 24 units in distance. So all the work you need to show, you have to have a formula written down, substitute the information that you have, isolate the variable, substitute it again, get it in the proper length, write your formula for perimeter, substitute, and simplify it down to an answer. The last thing you should always do is circle your answer. In the second question, you have a triangle, and I'll make it just 10, 12, x plus 4, and we'll make this 8. And we'll say the area is, let's make it, I don't know, what do we want to make it? 40. 40 meters, or whatever, 40 meters squared, or whatever it happens to be. So for this one, we have area equals base times height divided by 2. Area will, since we know all of the variables, we're going to substitute them in. So the area we already said was 40, so we're going to substitute that for area. The base and the height. Since it doesn't matter which one you choose to be the base or which one you try to, I'm going to do, instead of doing x plus 4 times 8, I'm going to do 8 times x plus 4 divided by 2. So the next thing we do is substitute our information. Now we're going to simplify that. So we're going to have 40 equals, remember, don't forget distributive property, 8x plus 32 cut in half, or divided by 2. 40 will equal, well, half of 8x is going to be 4x, and half of 32, since I'm having half of that as well, will be 16. This is the hardest part about it, is if you have 8x plus 32 and you have to divide it by 2, half of that, especially if you drew it out, you would see it much better. Half of 8x would be 4x, and half of the 16 would be 32. Now all I have to do is solve it using my opposite operations. X will equal 6. So again, just like the last question, once you've solved for x, take it back here, substitute it in, then change the distance to be, instead of 6 plus 4, it's 10. And the perimeter of this one would be 10 plus 12 plus 10 would be 32 as the perimeter. So the same steps. Again, write your formula, substitute it in, use distributive property to expand to get the proper numerator. Take half of each of the terms because you're dividing it by 2. Once you get it, solve for x. Once you know it, solve it, enter it in here, and just add all the sides together. And your final one, you have a circle, and you have something like this. And the radius might be something like x. I'm going to make up plus 10 is your radius. And it tells you that the circumference of this, let's make it 2, 12, 24. 24 times 3 is 72. So the circumference equals 72. So the area is what you have to solve for. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out, well, what is that x value? So circumference equals pi multiplied by diameter. I think on your sheet I said pi will be 3 to keep it simple. So the circumference is 72, so I'm going to substitute that where my c is. Pi is 3. And the diameter, I know the radius is x plus 10, which means this is x plus 10. And again, if you want to think of it, this is x plus 10. This is x plus 10. So really I have two x's, and plus 20 is going to be the length of my diameter. If my diameter was x plus 10, or my radius was x plus 10, my diameter is 10. Now another way to think of it is two radiuses equal a diameter, or two radiuses equals a diameter. Okay, you can think of it that way as well. But once we know the diameter as being doubled x plus 10 is 2x plus, I insert it there. So now I have my formula. Circumference equals pi times diameter. I'm going to expand this using distributive property. Circumference equals pi times the diameter will be 6x plus 60. Subtract my constant from both sides. I get 6x equals 12. And once I isolate for x, I know that x equals 2. Okay. I'm going to go back into my equation here. I'm going to erase all the stuff I don't need. Don't need this, 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 don't need that. But I do need this. So x equals 2. That means I'm going to erase that, put 2 there, and 2 plus 10 is really 12, which means the radius of this circle is 12. Now the question actually says, what is the area? So the area is going to be pi times the radius squared, or area will equal pi times the radius squared, or pi times the radius squared, which will be 3 times 144 is 88, 120, 132, 432 would be the area for this one. For your numbers are going to be different, but the same thing is going to happen. So again, first thing you need to do is determine how long the diameter is. Once you know that, pi times the diameter will equal your circumference. Expand this pi times diameter by using distributive property. Solve for x using your algebra sense. Substitute it into that radius to make sure you have a numeric value for your radius. Once you have that, use your formula pi r squared and work it all out to get your area.